14 hours of live coverage from Augusta National on Saturday and Sunday, beginning each day at noon Eastern on Paramount Plus and continuing at 2 on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. And I can tell you, folks, you're going to see me and Mike not just on the early wedge on our regular shows. We're going to be doing round recaps. We're going to be on CBS Sports Network. I know Joe Musso is involved in some of those shows as well. Like there's going to be and I think Shane Bacon is involved. Like the early wedge is kind of like bringing on some heavy hitters. So make sure two things. Make sure you turn your notifications on this SportsLine channel because you're not going to want to miss a lot of this content, but also just be dialed into CBS Sports Network. Mike, you're going to be on a few of those shows, right?
I will be. Yeah, several. Big week for the golf content, obviously, with the Masters fired up. There's so many shows. We'll be in the Discord server. We'll be all over the place between CBS Sports Network, CBS Sports HQ, SportsLine, everywhere, all Masters.
All right, all Masters. Let's talk about the Masters right now, Mike, because, this is one of those tournaments where it's great to remind everybody like what skill sets, we might be interested in, but like things don't really change. Although a couple of years ago, they did lengthen some holes and things of that nature, but we're looking at a par 72, 7,500 and change yards. The course plays, Mike, a lot longer than the 7,500 yards.
Yep.
And that does lend itself for me to be looking at some of the longer hitters, but I do think, mid to long iron play is super important here. I think that might be one of the more important things. I think around the green play is super important here, especially if the wind is up in any regard whatsoever. Before we get into the golfers that you're actually potentially picking, what type of golfer are you looking for at Augusta?
Good golfers also. It's just, you got to be able to play well in strong fields. So just looking at, guys that have typically performed well in elite fields. I do look at course history a lot. As you mentioned, not a lot changes. It's just one of those events where I think you have to really consider it. And then, as you mentioned, the long iron play, like you got to have distance off the tee as well. It never is going to hurt the around the green play, but it's kind of interesting because it's a lot of what we talk about, but for me, it still boils down to you're basically backing the best golfers in the world. So if you want me to give you like actual metrics that I think are going to be important, strokes gained approach. I'm sure you've heard that from us before. Yeah. Course history at Augusta National, driving distance, and around the green. That's, if you want to toss in par 5 scoring, go for it. You definitely have to score on the par 5s, but for me, it's approach. I'm going to favor some of the longer hitters, and you have to have played well at the Masters.
Yeah, and I don't think we're breaking any news here. I mean, we got total driving is something that I'm looking at. Driving distance, that's fine off the tee. I'm looking at mid to long irons, like you said. I'm looking at around the green play. Experience in recent form. So you mentioned experience. Yep. How much are you stressing recent form? And to the extent that you are, Mike, when recent form means different things to some people. Like to me, it means like really recent form, somewhere between maybe 16 and 24 rounds. But in terms of guys coming in cold, is that a player, if they're a heavy hitter, is that a player you'd consider?
Yeah, I would still consider them. I think guys like, the perfect example, we'll talk about him all week, is Hideki Matsuyama.
Okay,
Scheffler too. I'm definitely not worried about Scotty Scheffler. He's still right now the second best player.
I was saying Xander.
Oh, Xander. Yes. Xander can definitely worry about that. I'm speaking really recent, talking about Hideki missing a cut. And then heading off to the Masters, still going to profile extremely well thanks to his around the green play. Like guys like that, not concerned at all.
Fair enough. I do want to note, it looks like we have a 96-person field. It might be 97, I suppose, depending on who wins the Valero Texas Open. Top 50 and ties make the cut. We're not looking at the within 10 strokes situation, so top 50 and ties making the cut. Mike, there are a host of live players in this field. Listen, there's 72 PGA Tour players. There's 12 live players. There's 5 amateurs. There's 6 in that sort of like former senior winners. And then I believe there's an extra guy from the DP World Tour. With that in mind, the 12 live players, some of them probably have, they're not going to be contending here, but there are some big names, obviously, with Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau and guys like Patrick Reed, who are consistently good at the Masters. Some bigger names like Phil Mickelson is always a Masters big name. Joaquin Niemann, who has had a great live run, particularly this year. Any of these live names popping out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to talk about Bryson first. Just to me, he's polarizing, right? He's just a really interesting golfer, but he's going to profile pretty well around this place. Number one, he's obviously always been good tee to green. He's got the driving distance to go basically change the layout of the course relative to the average golfer. So I think that Bryson obviously still cares about these big moments. So he's first on the list. Patrick Reed, I like him. I think he's better suited in a top 20 market than an outright market.
Yeah.
I think he's really good on the top 20 market. That seems to be all the guy does at events like this. So I think he's going to be relevant. Other guys, Brooks Koepka, this is more of a DFS angle, but I think that he tends to get over-owned because he also is a big game hunter like Bryson, just kind of has the unique ability to show up and still be one of the 10 best golfers in the world at any given moment. But guys, I'm actually looking to attack in a betting market would be Bryson and Patrick Reed.
Yeah, Patrick Reed is such an interesting case study because I think when people who haven't been looking and they're like, oh yeah, Patrick Reed good at the Masters, that must have been a long time ago. And it's like, no, he's still good at the Masters. His last two I'm looking at now, last two at the Masters, T12 and T4. I mean, the guy just figures it out. And it does, Mike, that does tell you that knowing the course and being really good around the green and with scrambling is such a huge asset here. Like a lot of times I'm going to kind of discount around the green because I think there's some luck involved with your lie and just, hey, maybe you got a good couple chips and you're sort of in a groove. But I mean, at the Masters, just knowing the undulations of the greens and things of that nature, just being able to chip it to 2, 3, 4 feet, like that's Patrick Reed's wheelhouse.
It is absolutely his wheelhouse. And it really is why he does, project well for me. It's the around the green play and the course history, which again are correlated, but I think that he's there. So when I'm talking about, I guess I forgot one other guy because I just sorted everything by around the green play and it popped again. Tyrrell Hatton. I do like Tyrrell Hatton still. Again, probably more of a DFS sneaky play, not sneaky, but DFS play than someone I'm really thinking has true win equity. But it's Patrick Reed, Tyrrell Hatton, Hideki Matsuyama, Cam Smith. Those guys just crush around the green. All of them, if they were to be competitive at this event, it really wouldn't shock anyone because of how good they are around the green.
Racing 411 has a question. And by the way, the early wedge, that part of this whole brand is taking your questions and answering them in the best way we can. So whether it's this show or the live chat on Wednesday or really any of the DFS shows or betting shows, we're always going to take your questions. Racing 411 says Corey Connors, a sneaky play next week, plays decent at Augusta, which is very true, better than decent. And he's paired with his good current form. I think I like it. I mean, Connors, 3 top 10s at the Masters. I mean, this guy feels automatic-ish, but at the same time, Mike, it's Corey Connors, and that's not a name that really resonates when we're talking about a huge big boy event. I don't know if you think it should or not.
I think that he definitely fits pretty well here. I think that this field is just so loaded that I don't think that I can get there. It really is going to depend on price point again, and I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I think he's going to be on the outside looking in. Where I would recommend Connors, again, I know not everybody plays the same way. I think he's probably better suited in DFS.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to have our DFS show tomorrow at 7:00. And Mike, you and I are going to be a heavy part of that. Let's take a look. Josh, I don't know if we have the odds courtesy of BetMGM to put up. If we don't, I can just say them verbally. But we've got, as you might imagine, Mike, at the Masters, we got Scotty Scheffler at plus 450. We got Rory McIlroy at plus 650. And then there's a drop-off, a predictable drop-off. Plus 1,400 is Colin Morikawa. I like Colin. I think you can get a better number if you wait a little bit or if you shop around. Bryson is plus 1,600. Then we got John Rahm, interestingly enough, tied with Bryson over at BetMGM. I think that's a pretty good number on Rahm if you like him. We got the odds up here. Ludwig is next at plus 1,800. Then Xander at 20-1. Justin Thomas, 22. And then there's another kind of sharp drop-off to Joaquin Niemann at 28. And then Cantlay, Brooks, Jordan Spieth, Decky at 33, guys like Tommy Fleetwood and Victor Hovland in that territory as well. Any of these numbers jumping out to you, Mike?
I for me, like Bryson, again, plus 1,800, you can find as high as plus 2,000 in the market, I think is a pretty fair number. Morikawa is interesting. Like I like Colin Morikawa. I am not anxious to have Colin Morikawa be the third best odds in this field right now.
Yeah,
Just
I
I don't trust him closing out on Sunday at all.
Mhm.
Frankly, I don't. So I would be far more interested if you were seeing Morikawa at 20-1, kind of where Rahm, Bryce, and Xander were. I
Yeah.
think that's more appropriate. Now, can he go win? Of course he can. He's fantastic. He's a great golfer. I can't quite get to the price point on Morikawa there. Other guys that like, I like I like Bryson the most at this price point.
So I'll tell you, when I wrote a short article for CBS Sports about a week and a half ago. You can find it quite easily over at CBS or SportsLine. I put out Xander and Colin, and at the time they were both in that 18 to 20-1 range. Now,
Yeah.
this is not the best number on Colin, and BetMGM has good numbers on a lot of these other guys, but this isn't the best number on Colin specifically. You can still find 16s, probably some 18s as well, and it wouldn't shock me. Normally numbers get shorter, but it wouldn't shock me if Colin dropped just a little bit. Just speculating there, really. Xander at 20-1, though, Mike. He's been injured. He came back. He wasn't really good. And then all of a sudden the approach play was great and nothing else was like necessarily great, but we know he's a killer off the tee. And if his approach is dialed in, he does know this course. He's got, decent finishes at this course, 8th, T10, miscut T3 over his last 4 years. It's not that I'm saying Xander is definitely going to win the tournament. What I'm saying is 20-1 on Xander when we're not exactly sure where he's at in his quote recovery in terms of where the game is at. I think you could make the argument that Xander should be 14-1, and this might fall to 22-1 for all I know. Your thoughts on Xander?
Yeah, so I think that it probably is going to stay there and could potentially fall. So I may wait a couple days on it, but I don't think you're in danger of Xander going to say 14-1.
Yeah.
And I think that if Xander were healthy, he'd be 10-1 right now, basically. So yeah, I think that if you're willing to bet on Xander just knowing his way around the place and a little bit, longer time to recover and get back into the swing of things, I think that there's no problem at all speculating on Xander, jumping back up and being the third or fourth best player.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's had 2 to 3 weeks now since his last tournament to maybe just kind of sharpen his game. And when it comes to superstars, I think they sharpen their irons, so to speak, a lot quicker than some of the other guys. Let's talk about a couple of long shots before we move on, because obviously in the long shot department, we don't want to live there, Mike, when we're talking about the Masters, but there are some heavy hitters here. And I'm not going to go super long shot, but let me just mention a few. Shane Lowry's 40-1. A lot of people like him. Will Zalatoris, gosh, I don't know that he can do it, but he's got a great Masters track record. 40-1. Cameron Smith, I'm not touching that at 45-1. Your boy Terrell Hatton, 45-1. Robert McIntyre, 45-1. Corey Connors, 66-1. Of course, we just had a question from Racing 411 from him. Patrick Reed, also 66-1. Sepp Straka, 66-1. Tony Finau, Wyndham Clark, also that same number. I'm not going to bother with Sung Jae. I'll just be honest there, but he's 80-1. I think, I don't know that you'd go down any further than that, but there were a bunch of guys at the 40 and 60 range, Mike, that I thought were at least interesting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that's the range where you should be looking right now, and you should be shopping on price, because I can find 80-1s on Patrick Reed versus 65s in other places. So definitely shop those, and I think it is totally valid to go do that at this point. Guys that I would back that you mentioned, I actually do kind of like Corey Connors at that number. It's probably not going to come in, probably not going to happen, but showing some value on Connors, a little bit of value on Tyrrell Hatton. Lowry, I think, again, DFS play for me more so than outright play. Out of all the guys you mentioned there, I think it's Connors and Hatton that really stand out the most for me from a price point standpoint.
Connors is plus 400, including ties, and that's a good thing. The including ties is a good thing for a top 10. So I would imagine, Mike, a top 20 would be in that plus 200 range for Corey Connors when those come out.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, top 20 and DFS, those are the markets that I'm really going to be interested in guys like Corey Connors in.
And I do have to ask you this, because our producer Josh pointed this out. Now, there's probably going to be without Scotty markets, and I'm guessing that there's going to be, actually, I'm looking at it right now. I'm guessing there's also going to be without Scotty and Rory markets, and I'm looking at that right now. Both markets are out. Now, you just said, okay, two things I know to be true. one is you don't like these markets because the math isn't right. And I totally get that. But in a tournament like this, where so much, in my opinion, win equity is with those guys at the top, hypothetically, if you were to consider this market, would it be the without Scotty market, or would it be the without Scotty and Rory market?
It would be without,
choose one.
Yeah, it would be without both of them.
Okay.
Now, I'm shopping around on this too. There's also a without Scotty, Rory, Colin, Rahm, or Ludwig market, and Bryson is still 12-1 in that market.
Wow.
So that is interesting to me on that number. I think Rory is in great form. And the Rory, so here's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I like Bryson, obviously. You can find 20-1 pre-tournament. The number for Bryson without Rory and Scotty is 14-1. But if you add in Colin Morikawa, Jon Rahm, and Ludwig in there, the number drops to just 12-1 on Bryson. And I do kind of agree that Rory, Scotty, Colin are the clear top three. Jon Rahm there. I don't think Ludwig is top five, but I do love the fit for him. So just removing all five of those guys that are certainly top 10, and Bryson's number is still 12-1. I could see Bryson's actual number being 14-1 or lower, by the time this tournament tees off. So I do like Bryson right now, 12-1 in the without Rory, Scotty, Colin, Rahm, and Ludwig market.
I'll say this too, because I'm looking at that market too. I keep scrolling down and I see new markets, and I'm not saying you should live here. And I know Mike's not saying that either. Just in general, we don't want to live here, but our boy, Patrick Reed, I say our boy, I just adopted him like 5 minutes ago, is 45-1 in that market, in that market that was without those five guys. I mean, guys like Brooks Koepka, Shane Lowry's 22-1. I mean, I think, but what you said about Bryson, you're adding three more guys and you're just dropping 2 points. That does make sense for a guy like Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, these are things that we're going to talk about a lot, maybe a little bit on the DFS show tomorrow, a lot on the betting show. We just got a lot of content coming. Let me punctuate our Masters talk with this, because I think I like Colin Morikawa better than most people, and the reason is twofold. One is the ball striking and the metrics look so good. And what I like about that is you're just constantly putting yourself in position to be there on Sunday. Now, of course, the follow-up question to that is, okay, that's great, but can you close on Sunday? Now, here's the thing about that. I think his game is so consistent that I think the answer is yes, but I also think he's been close enough where he can learn from his mistakes. Do you ever factor that in? Like, is it necessarily a bad thing that Colin Morikawa has put himself in that position and lost? I mean, I think there's a point where that is a bad thing, where you see it too much with Tommy Fleetwood, for example, even though he probably should have beat Nick Taylor in that what was it, the RBC Canadian last year. But the point is I feel like Colin is still in the infancy phase of closing. That's just my opinion. I think he could have learned from a few weeks ago and maybe closed this time.
Yes. Yeah. So, I love my cross sport references. This is identical to the wide receiver that has a few frustrating wide open drops. You know what you have to do in the NFL to get wide open drops? Be really good at getting wide open. You know what you have to do to suck at closing? Be really good at being at the top of the leaderboard in talented fields. And that's what Colin Morikawa is. And that's what he does. So for me, no, it is a concern that's in the back of your mind and maybe a reason to not want to back him. But if you have value on the number and you like him, you got to go play him. Because look, in order to choke away, you've got to be so good that you're just consistently up there, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it.
100% true. Yeah. I mean, that's that. I don't want to take, Mike, I don't want to take the short numbers on Rory and Scotty. I wouldn't criticize anybody who does, but I think I'm just going to stick with my write-up from a couple of weeks ago. I think I'm going to stick with Xander. I think I'm going to stick with Colin, because I think the numbers, especially if you can get them between like 16 and 20, 22-1, I think I like those numbers, but I will probably flirt with that without market that we talked about as well. That's going to do it for the Masters talk for now. Again, we've got so many shows. We've got round recaps after each round of the Masters, which we don't normally do here on the Early Wedge. We've got our DFS show tomorrow at 7. We've got our betting show tomorrow at 7. We've got, I believe, our live chat, Mike. That might be you and me on Wednesday morning this time around. Josh is confirming, I think we've got about 10 shows combined on this channel right here or your podcast feed, but also on CBS Sports Network. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to the SportsLine YouTube channel, and make sure you check us out on CBS Sports Network, because we're all going to be everywhere this week. All right, that'll do it for our Masters coverage for now.